bring us back up to speed of where we were last night, because I'm going to ask him to be with us for a few days and really explain what has happened, what happened in 2008 and what is very likely happening to our country with economic terrorism. And it's not just Islamic. There are also others like George Soros that may be involved in this. Kevin, welcome to the program. How are you, sir?
Thank you, Glenn. I'm very well, thank you.
Last night, you, I thought, made a compelling case, first of all, of the people that may have engaged in economic terrorism in 2008. Can you go down that list again?
Yeah, we talked about Islamic terrorists, which you mentioned. Osama bin Laden has, or did say forever, our intention is to attack the U.S. economic system. We know the cracks in the system like the lines in our own hand. And that's why they hit the World Trade Center towers. It was an attack on the economy as much as it was an attempt to kill people.
They said, Osama bin Laden said, what I did to Russia, I will do to the United States. And that was an economic collapse as well. And we are repeating exactly the same. I mean, we're in the same endgame scenario that the Soviet Union was in if we don't wake up. Do you agree?
Right. Absolutely agree.
Okay.
And it goes back even before that. The founder of the Muslim Brotherhood created Sharia-compliant finance, and he termed it financial jihad, or jihad with money.
Boy, man, I'm so glad to meet you, Kevin, because we started looking into Sharia financing, and there are hedge funds, gigantic hedge funds, that are all based in Sharia financing here in the United States, and they've got some suspicious characters around them. Do you know anything about them, or do you agree with that?
I do know something about them. Prior to 2007, under Sharia law, it wasn't allowed to be speculative in any way, and you weren't allowed to do any short selling. And that was added to the Sharia code through a transaction known as the Arboon transaction. It was big public news in the Wall Street Journal in I think it was August 2007. And that was immediately before the attacks that we saw in our markets, which is one of those circumstantial pieces of evidence that they may have been involved.
Okay, now give me the odds of the 2008 collapse of Bear Stearns. You talked about this last night. Anybody who says, "Oh well, no, this was just a collapse of Bear Stearns, and this is just the way it happens," give me the odds of the way this thing came down.
All right, I'm going to have to look it up to get specific because it's so overwhelming. New England Complex Systems Institute actually looked at Citigroup, and they looked at them in October 2007, I believe, and there were 2 days that there was unusual trading activity, and it got into the chances of it happening, naturally, were one in billions. And I'll have to look up. The odds are so overwhelming, my mind just can't even grasp it. But they proved mathematically that a bear raid had taken place. Now, they didn't prove who had done it. They didn't prove any of the specifics. But Wall Street will argue, bear raids don't happen. This is the market being efficient. That's simply not the case. Even George Soros said that it was a bear raid that took down Bear Stearns.
Explain what a bear raid is.
It's like a run on the bank, only with a stock.
Okay, but a run on the bank, what is the problem with a run on the bank? I mean, we've had run on the banks before, and they're not coordinated per se. It just picks up steam.
Well, somebody somewhere starts and says, this bank's not solvent, and they start a panic. And that's what a bear raid is. It's starting a panic in the stock where people want to dump their shares and get out. And the way that you do that is you use short selling. And the old-fashioned way was you spread rumors about the company so that people say the company's going under and people panic and they want to sell.
So what makes you say that this was a bear raid that was anything other than just somebody unscrupulous that wanted to take down Bear Stearns or whatever? Why?
When you look at the trading activity, one of the analysts that looked at it, and this was written up in Rolling Stone of all places, they said that it would be like buying 1 million lottery tickets and then having it pay off. It's just people were betting that the company would collapse so far and so fast that it was out of the realm of understanding unless you knew something was going on.
And short selling jumped 23-fold, right?
That's correct. That is correct.
Explain short selling quickly.
Short selling is a legitimate means in the marketplace of borrowing shares from another person and then selling them. And if the price of the stock goes down, You buy them back and you keep the profit. You return the shares that you borrowed. That's legitimate. That's short selling. Naked short selling is where you do that process without borrowing the shares. So you're selling nothing other than an IOU at some point to buy the shares back.
Explain this. On March 11th, I'm quoting from your book, on March 11th, there were 201,768 shares of Bear that had failed to deliver. The very next day, the number of phantom shares leapt to 1.2 million. By the close of trading that Friday, the number passed 2 million. When the market reopened the following Monday, it had soared to 13.7 million. What does this mean?
That means somebody was counterfeiting Bear Stearns stock. They were selling something they did not own and hadn't borrowed, so they were creating fake Bear Stearns certificates, in a sense, and selling them into the marketplace. Failure to deliver. If you sell a stock or I sell a stock, you go to your broker and say, I'm selling 100 shares of Apple. They're going to ask you in 3 days, you better show up with that stock, or they're going to, quote, buy you back. They're going to say, hey, you didn't show up with the stock, so we're buying it back.
Right, but now there are 13.7 million shares that somebody didn't have to show up with?
Somebody did not show up with, and they just went into the system as an IOU, which turns out not to be a bad thing for the person who sold them because it caused a panic in the market. Everybody says Bear Stearns is going under. The panic in the market, and it was plausible because Bear Stearns had some financial problems, no doubt. But that panic caused the stock price to collapse, and when it did, the person who had sold them was able to buy the shares back for $10 a share in the end, and they profited this enormous profit because J.P. Morgan came in and bailed out Bear Stearns. They bought the company out at $10.
Who's big enough or who do that?
Well, you mentioned George Soros. A bear raid is a technique that can be done legitimately, and we suppose maybe Mr. Soros has been doing these things legitimately, but it was learned by the Chinese PLA in the book Unrestricted Warfare that I showed last night. They talked about causing bear raids and stock market crashes. So the People's Liberation Army is sophisticated enough, and people that have enough money, sovereign wealth funds, Muammar Gaddafi had something like $200 billion of assets in Western markets.
Go ahead.
There are a lot of people who could do this.
Give the stat that you gave last night on Muammar Gaddafi and how big that amount of money is.
Well, he originally, we thought, well, maybe he had $8 billion or $10 billion, and I watched the press reports, and the last report was $200 billion, which is about 4 times the wealth of Warren Buffett.
So we're talking a huge sum because Warren Buffett affected the price of GE stock really early in 2008. Do you remember that? When he came out and said, hey, you know what, I'm buying GE stock. I think it was GE, and it went up. I mean, he can affect the price of the or what happens with the market easily. And you're saying that it's 4 times the amount with Muammar Gaddafi. Do we know where that money is now?
Well, I assume the authorities have found it and located it. Some of it was at Goldman Sachs. Some of it at one point was with the Stanford Group, which was accused of being a Ponzi scheme by the SEC. It's been spread around the world, but that's how much we have found since we started looking for the money and since Gaddafi was killed.
Can I ask you a question? There's I don't even remember what it was, like $1 billion or something like that is missing over in Iraq that we took cash, just gone. We have $1 billion missing from MF Global. How does something like that happen? And is there any chance that is that's money that's being used against us?
I don't. The MF Global money, I don't know. That may have been lost in bad trading. I don't know where that went. But I think it was much more than $1 billion. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say it was something like $40 billion. It was an enormous amount of money that was moved. And I'm probably excessive there, but it was an overwhelming amount of money, and that was stolen. And we don't know where it was stolen. And of course, it could be used in this way.
Okay. Now, you made the point that Islamic terrorist groups, Muslim state actors like Iran, totally, and Gaddafi, totally feasible, sovereign wealth funds in Qatar and Abu Dhabi, everyone will tell you that Abu Dhabi is a friend of ours.
That's right. But Abu Dhabi and Qatar both are under Sharia-compliant mandates and rules. And if you simple Google search Sharia compliance versus capitalism, and you'll see that they feel that capitalism is a decadent Western system that needs to be destroyed.
Okay. China, the PLA, great case on this. Mafia and Russian officials, and Venezuela is the other player. And then piggybackers like George Soros. And you're not saying that George Soros caused this, although he has caused the collapse of, I think it's 5 currencies. He's known as an economic terrorist in some parts of the world.
The PLA referred to him as a financial terrorist in their book.
Holy cow.
And so in that book, you'll see George Soros mentioned on one page, turn the page, and it's Osama bin Laden on the next page. It's like they're the two heroes that the PLA was talking about in 1999, before they were known very much around the world.
You said last night that there are 3 phases, and we're going to go through the 3 phases tonight, but you say we're in the 3rd phase of this attack. Can you briefly just kind of run down the 3 phases and what this means?
Yeah, phase 1 was the rapid increase in oil prices. From January 2007 through June 2008, the price of oil went from $50 a barrel to almost $150 a barrel, which is unprecedented unless you have some sort of supply disruption. It's never happened before. It happened while the economy was weakening, and so demand was actually going down, and at the same time, supply was increasing. So
okay, this is what everybody was saying, that, well, that's the speculators that are doing that. What do you claim it was?
Well, speculators is probably the right term. Some speculating on the demise of the American economy, but it was the same mechanisms. I talked to Richard Eckhouse, who's the chairman emeritus of the MIT economics department, and I walked through with him. And at the end of it, I said, could this have been done as an attack? Of course.
All right. So phase 1 was attack the energy costs.
That's right, and that weakened our economy so substantially because people had a choice between paying their mortgages,
right,
or paying their gas bill.
Okay, I've only got about 2 more minutes. Can you take me quickly through the next 2 phases?
Okay, phase 2 was the attack on the stock market, the bear rates that we talked about with Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers. And what that did is panicked everybody out of the stock market.
And we have Kenjowski, a congressman, on tape saying, there were all kinds of trades going on, and it would have absolutely collapsed, right?
It was very near collapse in the credit markets. They just froze up. So people weren't getting loans, and now the economy was going down.
The 3rd phase, which we'll go into tonight in greater detail. The 3rd phase is what?
3rd phase is what we see in Greece today. It is the destruction of the currency. It's the destruction of the credit rating of the United States.
You said that nobody will claim this as their own. Nobody in government is really listening to this. The Pentagon took it and they had it, but they couldn't really do anything because it's not their purview. It's not justice. It's not. Who should be looking at this?
Well, all of government agencies should be looking at it because it's a matter of national security. The key will be to get the key people in the various groups. And there are some good patriots in a lot of groups. I've done 200 briefings on this, and I've identified some really important people that want to help. We just need the structure, and we need the overarching administration support to make it happen.
The name of the book is Secret Weapon by Kevin Freeman. He's going to be on with us tonight at GBTV, and he will give you specific things that we can do, you can do, and information that I don't think you're going to get anywhere else. I mean, I don't see this information out there, Kevin. I mean, are you amazed that the media just will not pay attention to this?
When I wrote this, I thought there was a whole CIA division that would probably be looking at it. There's hardly anyone who's looked at it, and the media, I think it goes over their heads. Nobody's given it the time that you're giving it to really grasp and understand the issue.
It's not really that hard to figure out, and I mean, if you're looking for an explanation of what's going on, it all makes perfect sense, and you back it up with the facts. Tonight, 5 o'clock, GBTV, name of the book, Secret Weapon. Kevin Freeman is his name. Kevin, we'll talk to you tonight.
Thanks, Glenn.
You bet.